السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Today, inshallah, we are going to discuss a very important issue, and it is the issue of Qadr. And the reason why it is very important, because it is a part of our Iman. It is one of the fundamentals of our deen, and a person must have his faith in Qadr, and that is because there are various numbers of ayat and ahadith. But at the same time, there is a lot of confusion regarding this mas'ala. In fact, you will see some scholars saying on the authority of a hadith that people shouldn't even talk about it. And that is because, and that's true, because this is what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to his companions. That is because we don't actually have that kind of language with the help of which we can explain this issue 100%. So it is better to avoid it, but sometimes it is important to shed some light on such issues, not full, you don't have to go like in full depth, but because in our time, especially in the age of social media, there are a lot of people who are raising questions about Qadr, and especially if something is an integral part of our deen, then people really want to know then what is the meaning of Qadr and what is the meaning of destiny. And if everything is predestined, then that means that people are bound to do certain thing. And if that's the case, then why would they be rewarded and why would they be punished? So the question is that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decided our destiny, has decided our fate, then that means we don't have any free will. And if we cannot exercise a free will, that means we should not be rewarded for our deed, and we should not be punished, because punishment and reward should be subject to a free will, and the free will, we don't have it. If this is the case that everything is predestined by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and He has decided already our fate. So that is a very common question. So first I would like to recite a few ayat from Surah ad-Dahr. Surah ad-Dahr is the second last surah of 29th juz. The meaning of Dahr is time. So we need to understand, we need to keep that in mind, the relevance of free will with time and the relevance of Qadr with time. It's and that's why I chose these ayat, because the discussion is going to be about time, and the discussion is going to be about Qadr and the free will, and all these three things are mentioned in one place in Surah ad-Dahr. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, هَلْ أَتَى عَلَى الْإِنسَانِ حِينٌ مِّنَ الدَّهْرِ لَمْ يَكُنْ شَيْئًا مَذْكُورًا. By the way, another name of Surah ad-Dahr is Surah al-Insan, and that is because that is one of the words that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used in the first ayah. So He says, there has come upon man a period of time in which he was nothing worth mentioning. Meaning there was once upon a time, everything was there. Animals were there, rocks were there, mountains were there, clouds were there, the oceans were there, water was there, oxygen was there, trees and plants and vegetations, and everything was there. Animals were there. Human being wasn't there. He wasn't created. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the human being. So everything came before the human being. Why? Because suppose if you are moving to a full furnished apartment, so everything has to be there, all your basic needs, and all, not even basic needs, in fact sometimes the luxury items, the sofa and the furniture, they're not your basic need, but they have to be there in a full furnished apartment. Then a person will move in. So this globe that we are the residents of is like a full furnished apartment, and we just moved in. And we have all the luxury items and all the basic items, and all the essentials are available for us. And then once, because we don't own it, once we will move from here, we'll move out. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that there has come upon a man a period of time, upon a human being a period of time in which he was nothing worth mentioning, because nobody was talking about him, about human beings, since he wasn't there. Then what happened? إِنَّا خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ مِن نُطْفَةٍ أَمْشَاجٍ نَبْتَلِيهِ فَجَعَلْنَاهُ سَمِيعًا بَصِيرًا. We have created human being from a mixed sperm drop to put him to a test. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the main reason of our creation, نَبْتَلِيهِ, putting him to a trial, putting him to a test. is the main reason. And then he says, we made him able to hear, able to see. And after that, he's now able to hear and able to see. And with these senses, he's able to process the information and use his mind and his rationality. So after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him two choices. Inna hadaynahu sabila imma shakiran wa imma kafura. We have shown him the way to be either grateful or ungrateful. So these are two different ways. Now it is up to a human being which way he adopts, whether the path that leads to iman or a path that leads to kufr. So this ayah is particularly talking about a free will, that a human being exercises his free will, and that the free will is given to human being by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are the few verses of Surah ad-Dahr, and as you can see, they are related to the Aqidah of Qadr. Now, speaking of Aqidah of Qadr, there are three major groups, and the first two groups are misguided, and the third group is the right one, and that's the group of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. The first group is called Qadariyah. And by the way, these Qadarites don't exist anymore. They existed during the time of Sahaba radiallahu anhum. They believed that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not know anything about the future. So it's a human being, he does it. So for example, if tomorrow, let's say someone's name is Hamid and he's not going to fast tomorrow. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't know if Hamid will fast or not. So if Hamid doesn't fast, he will be punished in the after his death, and if he fasts, he will be rewarded. Allah Azza wa Jal doesn't know anything what's going to happen in the future. But then obviously by adopting this aqidah, these people are saying that Allah Azza wa Jal does not know. Not knowing is ignorance, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala obviously is not an ignorant. He is all-knowing. He's claiming in several ayat of the Quran that he is all-knowing. Inna Allah alimun. Alim means all-knowing. So this aqidah was clearly contradictory to many verses of the Quran. That's why these Qadarites realized after some time that they were at a big mistake. They were actually associating ignorance to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so they changed their aqidah. And then later they're called Mu'tazila after 200 years. And then they came up with a different interpretation. They said that no, Allah is all-knowing, He knows everything. But the reason why a person is accountable because he is the creator of his own deeds. So for example, if Hamid will fast tomorrow, so he actually creates the act of fasting, and for which he will be rewarded. And if he doesn't fast tomorrow, so he won't create the act of fasting, for which he will be punished. So human being is the creator of all his actions, and upon creation of actions, good or bad, a person will be rewarded or a person will be punished. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all-knowing, but at the same time, human being is the creator of his actions. The problem with this aqidah is that they associated billions of partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a particular characteristic of Allah, which is the sifa of khalq. The characteristic of creation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-khaliq, and He's the only al-khaliq. He's the only creator. So if you associate to Allah a partner, even in one particular sifa or characteristic, this is shirk. For example, you can't say that so-and-so is sustainer. That means you're associating to Allah a partner in providing sustenance. So this aqidah of Mu'tazilites, it led to shirk. So that's the first extreme. The second extreme in this regard was adopted by Jabariya or Jabarite. Jabariya is the Arabic term. It's derived from Jabra, and Jabr means force. They actually said that a human being has no free will at all. He's completely forced by Allah, and all his actions are bound by the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if Allah knows that Hamid will not fast, so Hamid will not fast tomorrow because Allah knows that. And Hamid cannot even decide to fast because he can't oppose the knowledge of Allah. And if Allah knows that Hamid will fast tomorrow, so Hamid has to fast regardless. There is no way he can oppose or he can decide not to fast, because he can never go against the knowledge of Allah. He can never oppose Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's knowledge. So they are called Jabarites, and obviously Jabariya. This aqidah is obviously it's not right. And why? Because of the common sense. Because by adopting this aqidah, they are claiming that their IQ level is worse than animals. If I mean, even animals understand that the difference between two types of movement. A movement that is done with intention and a movement that is done without any intention by force. Imagine if you throw a rock or a stone to, let's say, a dog, an stray dog. You're hitting him with a stone. There is a movement in the stone and there is a movement in your body, in your hand. The dog knows that it's not stone's fault, so it doesn't start barking against the stone, or it doesn't chase the stone, it doesn't bite the stone. It starts barking against the person who threw the stone. It can easily differentiate, the dog can differentiate between the two types of movement. So he understands that a human being that threw the stone is not completely forced. It's the stone that is completely forced for the movement. So the IQ level of a dog is better than these people. So that's why this aqidah was totally refused and it was adopted by some. Though it is still there among some Christians, some philosophical groups among Christians, but it is not there among Muslims. Now, what is the correct aqidah about Qadr? So as I said, that Qadr is a part of our iman, and that is because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was visited by Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam towards the end of his life, worldly life, and Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam asked a few questions to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. One of those questions was mal iman, and Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam said, iman is that you believe in Allah, you believe in His books, you believe in His messengers, you believe in malaika, you believe in the day of judgment, you believe in resurrection. And then he said, and wal qadri khayrihi wa sharrihi, and you believe in good and bad fate and destiny. So believing in good or evil fate and destiny is a part of iman. So if you, let's say, take out this little portion, or you say, well, I'm confused about Qadr, or I don't believe in Qadr, that means you don't have, your iman is incomplete, or there is a very important piece missing, or lacking in iman. So this type of iman is not even accepted. There are several ayat. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that وَالشَّمْسُ تَجْرِي لِمُسْتَقَرٍّ لَهَا ذَلِكَ تَقْدِيرُ الْعَزِيزِ الْعَلِيمِ. The movement of the sun in its orbit is predestined by the all-powerful and all-knowing. ذَلِكَ تَقْدِيرُ الْعَزِيزِ الْعَلِيمِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says also, وَعِنْدَهُ مَفَاتِحُ الْغَيْبِ لَا يَعْلَمُهَا إِلَّا هُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the keys of the unseen world, and only He knows about them and no one else. So He has the knowledge of the unseen. وَيَعْلَمُ مَا فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ. He knows everything of what happens in the ocean. He knows everything what happens on earth. وَمَا تَسْقُطُ مِنْ وَرَقَةٍ إِلَّا يَعْلَمُهَا وَلَا حَبَّةٍ فِي ظُلُمَاتِ الْأَرْضِ وَلَا رَطْبٍ وَلَا يَابِسٍ إِلَّا فِي كِتَابٍ مُبِينٍ. So if a leaf falls from the tree, He knows it. If there is a habba, if there is a small piece, a grain, Allah, and that moves in the darkness of the night, whether anything that is fresh or that is dry, any movement, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows about it. So knowing everything and deciding the fate of everything, this is the part of iman. So if that's the case, then this will lead us to, again, the same question, that if Allah knows everything, and because He knows already what we're going to do in the future, we cannot oppose Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's knowledge, then why are we accountable? That is a question. So keep in mind, respected brothers and sisters, that we human beings are not al-mukhtarul mahz, neither al-majburul mahz. When we say al-mukhtarul mahz, meaning we do not have absolute authority and absolute freedom. Neither we have, we are not al-majburul mahz, that we have no authority whatsoever and no freedom and no free will at all. No, we're actually in the middle. And that is because there are certain things that we have no choice over. For example, we don't have any choice over our shape, our form, our skin color, our clan, our family, our tribe, the date of birth. We didn't decide which day and which month and which year and which place we're going to be born, or we will be born. We don't decide which day we will die. We don't decide how much food and how much money we will make throughout our life. So these are the things that we have no control over, and it is predestined by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we have no free will in this regard. But there are certain things that we have absolute free will. For example, I'm talking to you right now, you're listening to me with your own free will. If you want, and if you decide to turn this thing off and you just don't want to listen to me, you don't listen to me. So you act based on your free will. You acted right until now, you acted based on your free will, and then after you're done or in the middle, if you want to close this, if you want to turn it off, that is also your free will. So there are certain things that we were given the authority to exercise our free will, and there are certain sectors and certain issues or things that we have no free will at all. So that is the middle path, which is adopted by Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. But that doesn't really solve the problem, doesn't answer to the question that I mentioned earlier. For that, I have to take you further, a few more steps further. You know, when we exercise our free will, we exercise it by the permission of Allah. We exercise it by the permission and the authority of Allah. Allah enabled us to exercise our free will. This is called kasb in Arabic. Kaf, sin, ba, kasb. Kasaba in Arabic, it means to earn. It also means to do something, to perform something. So in Arabic, in English, you can translate it as performance or performing. So kasb is the authority that we use, and we were given this authority by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And how does that work? Let me give an example. For instance, during the daytime when the sunlight enlightens everything, so we call it the sunlight, and its specialties and its impact on different things is different. For example, if you are during the day in summer, the sunlight will bother you, and people feel uncomfortable during the sunlight while they are out there, if they're not at home. But at night time, the same sunlight comes to us through the moon. So the moon is the wasita, is the link. But during the daytime, the light of the sun comes to us without any link directly. So at night it comes indirectly, and during the day it comes directly. But when it comes at night, it's not called sunlight. It's called moonlight, because it's coming through the moon. And its impact is different. You know, at night, even during the summer days, when you go out, you feel comfortable. So similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has irada, has qudra, and with his irada, sometimes he directly impacts on us. His irada impacts on us. So his irada impacts on us directly regarding our birth and our death and our sustenance, and when we have to be born and where we have to be born and in what family we have to be born. All of those things are related to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's irada directly. But then there are certain things that Allah gave us irada to do those things. For example, right now, again, same example, you're listening to me. So Allah enabled you to exercise that irada. It's just like the sun gave that light to the moon, and the moon then sheds that light over us. So this exercise of irada, which was given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to us, in terminology, it is called kasb. Now, a person is rewarded or punished based on his kasb, based on his performance, not based on the natija, the result he gets. For example, imagine if you have been saving saving money for past 2-3 years. Every time you get your salary, you save some money because you wanted to go for Hajj. You had that money saved with you, but it was in the form of cash sitting in your home. And then let's say you decided to go for Hajj this year in Hajj 2020, but because of the coronavirus, everything is locked down. And suppose travel agencies are not accepting any new applications, they cannot process it. And the Saudi government shut down all the flights, no flight is going. So what would you do? You had the irada, you had the intention, you had the money, everything was there. But in the meantime, what happened? The money was at home, it was stolen. Somebody broke in and stole all the money. So what's going to happen to you? You will be rewarded based on your kasb. Even if you don't go there, you will get the reward of Hajj, because you had this sincere intention and full motivation and all the means available. The only thing is that there were certain hindrances that you had no control over. You get the reward without getting the result. So similarly, if a person had all the means of committing sin available, for example, this person wanted to take drugs. Drugs were there. He purchased them, and he was just going to take them, somebody came in and found out that you were taking drugs, and then he seized those drugs from you. So you had the firm intention of taking drugs, but you were not able to take it because they were seized before you even take them. So a person just by his firm intention will get the sin because the Kasb is there, though you didn't get the result. So Kasb is in our, it's in our control. Result is not in our control. Let me give you another example of Kasb versus result, performance versus result. Let's say, I'm sure you know many people in your family that there is a person who had good qualification, but he didn't get a good job. His job is quite stressful, and he doesn't get a lot of money. On the other side, there is another person who has similar qualification or even worse qualification than the first person, and he has a very good job and he makes a lot of money without any stress. So both of them are doing equal Kasb. In fact, the first person is doing more Kasb and doing more efforts. The second person is doing less efforts and making more money. So that means that human being cannot control the result. We can only control our efforts, or our performance, which is Kasb. So after we've understood these basic things, now let me take you back to the same question. The question is that if Hamid will not fast tomorrow, because it is in the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then why is he held accountable? He shouldn't be held accountable because he can never oppose Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his knowledge. So this question is in itself wrong. Why it is wrong? The reason is, now I'm going to connect this to what I said earlier. Remember, I recited the ayat from Surah ad-Dahr. Dahr means time. Time has units, different units. For example, past, present, and future. For us, human being, we have experienced our past. We cannot go back in our past. Present is right now, we're experiencing it. We know what's happening to us. We know what's happening around us, if we are able to see. And we have no knowledge about the future, what's going to happen in the future. Why? Because we haven't seen it. So these are different units. So we have the ability to see the present only. We have no ability to see the past after it's over. And we have no ability to see the future. Why? That is because we live in time. Time is a dimension. So we live in time. We cannot go outside of the time's fabric. As the modern science believes that time is the fourth dimension. For example, your body, if somebody is in the same room as you are right now, he can see your three dimensions. He can see your length, your width, your depth. So it's not like first he will see your length, then he will see your depth, then he will see your width. No, he will see all three dimensions at the same time. Time is also a dimension, but we don't see all of it. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not in time. Why? Because time is created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So time is a creation of Allah. Like we are the creation of Allah. Time is also the creation of Allah. And whatever Allah has created, Allah is outside of it. Allah is not inside of it. Allah is outside. He's muhitun bi kulli shay. He's surrounding everything. He's not in it. Just like I gave an example of, many times I give this example, perhaps if you watch my older videos. Imagine if there's a guy who made a computer. So when you made a computer, you cannot be inside the computer. You have to be outside the computer. The guy who made the computer is not part of the computer. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created time, so he's not part of the time. He is outside of the time. And if that is the case, then he is seeing all units of the time at the same time. Just like if I made the computer, so I know in and out of this computer everything that it does, or it has the capability of. I know all units and all parts of this machine. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the time, so He knows all units of the time, past, present, and future, just like we know the present. Now, imagine if you are seeing me right now, speaking to you. Right now, you're seeing me speaking to you. And because you're seeing me, that means you have a knowledge. You have ilm. Knowledge of what? Knowledge of me talking. Because you have a knowledge of me talking, that is because you're seeing me, does not make me bound to your knowledge. I'm still talking to you using my free will, exercising my free will. Therefore, if I decide not to speak, I won't speak. And if I decide to continue talking, I will continue talking. Just because you know doesn't mean I lost my free will. So, like you are seeing me in this hal, meaning in this present, 3 time units in this unit. And because you're seeing me, you have knowledge. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is seeing all units of the time at the same time. And as you know, as I said, we don't have a proper language to describe this. All 3 units of the time at the same time. See, at the same time. Even this expression is not perfect for Allah because Allah is not bound to time. But we have no other language. We have no choice but to use this to make people understand. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is seeing all of us and our past and present and future, just like we are seeing our present and you're seeing my present. And Allah Azza wa Jal, if He knows all the units of the time, if He sees all the units of the time at the same time, then it doesn't mean that the person in those units is bound to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's knowledge. No, the person does not lose his free will. Just like you are seeing me right now doing something or talking to you, and I don't lose my free will. So this question is wrong. Why would Hamid be held accountable if he doesn't fast tomorrow because he can't oppose Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's knowledge? No. Just because Allah knows something doesn't mean that Hamid doesn't have a free will. So I hope this makes it clear. Let me give you another example. Imagine, and for that I will use a simple example, a simple diagram. In fact, a circle. It will pop up on your screen, inshallah. Just a second. So imagine this is a globe. And this is a 2D world. This is a 2D world that I made. And there is a person, where I typed person, that's the guy. And he's moving to his right side, the arrow. And where he is right now in the green zone, that is, for example, a green area, grass. And the blue area is water. So he's moving towards the right side. But he doesn't know what's waiting ahead, what's coming ahead. He doesn't know that he will end up on the shore or he will end up in the ocean. But I am the designer of this 2D world, so I know the entire 2D world, and I know that ahead of him is the ocean. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made this world, and this world is not a 2D world. It's basically 3D with the 4th dimension, which is time. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is outside of this world, and He is looking at all the world, just like you and I were looking at that 2D world which I made. So that's why this question is totally wrong, that if Allah knows something that I will do this in the future, then I have to do it. I don't have any free will. No, you exercise your free will despite Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knowing, because Allah knows that you're going to be exercising your free will. That also solves the question. Another question, people say, well, if Allah knew some people will go to hellfire, then why did He create those people? Isn't that injustice with them? Again, if Allah knew why He created, that means the guy who's asking this question, he is setting 2 different timelines for Allah. The timeline for knowing something and the timeline for creating that thing, which is not right. Again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking at the entire time all at once. It's not like he knew first, then he created. That's not how it works. Why? Because all different aspects or all different units of time are equal in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's equally seeing past, present, and future. So that is the mas'alatul qadr, that is the response, that is the answer to that question. I hope you all understood. Lastly, keep one thing in mind, and that is that in theology, when we talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's zat and his sifat and his characteristics, and we use rationality and we use logic, and sometimes we don't have proper knowledge. We don't see what is logic, what is rationality. Logic and rationality are laws that intelligent people designed and introduced. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not dependent on our laws and on our principles. If we cannot interpret something about Allah, if we cannot understand something through using logic and rationality about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is because we are trying to understand an infinite being through finite rules and regulations that were designed and introduced by finite mind and intellect. Obviously, that doesn't make any sense because our aql and our mind is finite. It is not unlimited. If it is not unlimited, then how can you explore what is unlimited with a limited tool? So many times things don't make sense, but that doesn't mean that they are wrong. So if qadr didn't make any sense to you, it should have made sense now after this brief and simple explanation, inshallah. But if there are any other idea in the deen that you don't understand, that doesn't mean that just because simply you don't understand, you lose your iman over it. Because you will not be asked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala whether you understood something if it belongs to the unseen world. You will only be asked by Allah if you had iman over it. So understanding the unseen world fully is not even a requirement. It's not demanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from human being. What we are demanded and what we were commanded, that we understand our ibadat, we understand ourselves, we understand our duties, we understand our responsibilities as human being, as mu'min, as Muslim, as practicing Muslims. We understand all of those things. So understanding what we have to do is a requirement. Understanding fully what we need to believe in is not a requirement. So that's why just because something doesn't make any sense to you or something you're not able to understand at this point of time, in the future, perhaps you will understand that shouldn't make you lose your iman. I hope Mas'alatul Qadr must have become clear now, inshallah ta'ala. If you have any question, you can inshallah leave that question in the comment. Jazakumullahu khair al-jaza, and I would appreciate if you have some feedback in a sense that whether this explanation about Mas'alatul Qadr was good, you understood it, or more could have been said. So inshallah